Hey guys, this is Al. Now, today I'm going to be talking about how you can actually set your pricing. What is the right price for your product and services? One of the dilemmas that people face a lot of times when they're in business is basically coming up with the right price. They're not sure whether they should raise their prices, lower their prices, or even what the prices should be set at. So I'm going to talk about the 7 things today, which are 7 principles in setting up your prices that I use, and I'm sharing that with you today. All right, so let's get started. Number one is let yourself off the hook because no price is the right price. All right, no matter what you choose, there's always going to be somebody who has an objection to your pricing. If you raise your price up a little bit or more, people are going to say, well, you're pricing yourself out of the market. And then if you get your price a little bit lower, some people may be happy, but then other people may say, well, that means that it's not worth that much because it's too cheap or too free or something like that. And even if it's free, for crying out loud, people will have problems with it because of that. Because they say, well, what's wrong with it? Because it's free. People don't give you anything for free. Must be something wrong with it. So people have those type of impressions in relation to your pricing. So you can't please everyone. So let yourself off the hook. That's number one. All right, number two, you need to focus on your current and your future goals. The other day, I went into a clothing store to get a new suit. Okay. I was going to an event, and for those of you who know me and watch this channel, you know that I really don't like wearing suits. I can't stand it, in fact. But my wife told me that we were going to this event. I needed to wear formal attire. So, in the efforts to please my wife, as I often do, I do what she asked me to do. Okay? Happy wife, happy life. But when I went to the clothing store and I looked over the suits that they had, I wasn't pleased. I was basically saying that, these suits are not anything special here. I really want something that looks nice. If I'm going to spend money on a suit, I want something that looks really good. And I was about to abandon my idea of getting a suit. And then I looked over and I saw that they had these really nice ties. And I said, wow, those ties look awesome. And I thought of some of the suits that I had at home and I said, wow, if I just use the suits that I had and I use some of these really nice ties, I could get it. Now, the store owner was interested in selling me a suit. He was looking at, selling the big sale, basically. And the ties were nice, reasonably priced, not too expensive. And I decided to buy some ties. Now, he looked sad when he was selling me the ties because he was like, I really wanted to sell you a suit. But I was no longer interested in a suit. I was interested in the ties. Here's the point. He was focusing on his current goal, which is to sell me the suit and make a larger profit. And I was interested in my goal, which is basically to make my wife happy and look different and get ready for this formal event. And I basically bought those ties. She loved them. I was able to wear one of the suits that I already had. And then the guy, even though he was kind of sad when I left with just my ties, here's the thing that he doesn't know. He has a customer for life because the ties are so nice that I decided that I was going to buy my ties there. And if he comes with any new suits, probably going to buy it there too. Now, he was focusing on his short-term goal, basically selling me a suit. I was focusing on my long-term goal, which is finding a great place where I can buy suits, accessories, and more, and also my long-term goal of just making my wife happy. Now, he has a client for life, which may not be his long-term goal. The point that I'm making here is your pricing needs to reflect your goals. If your goal is just to pay one bill and then that's it, then let your pricing reflect that. But if your larger goal is to get a client for life, then you need to think about, how can I offer the best service and the best pricing for a client for life? Okay? All right, so that's number 2. Number 3, don't let people waste your talent. Okay? Now, when you're pricing yourself out or your services out, you have to put in there the value of what you do. Okay? Now, the thing here is that when you see people and they're constantly getting information from you and getting information from you and getting information from you, but they're not giving anything as far as an order, or they're not, you know, um, doing anything with you. I mean, nothing, but they're constantly calling you for information. Then you have to ask yourself, how can you provide them with the help they need, but not have it be a situation where you waste your talent on somebody who's never going to purchase anything. Now, one of the ways that I did that years ago was that I decided that I would give people a lot up front. But what happens is that over time, I would switch them to an automated format, which would mean that they would get a lot of the help that they needed in the form of video. So what happens is that if I had a client who was not really a client because they never ordered anything, they never, they never really bought anything, or then what I would do is I would give them the help that they would need. But if I saw that they weren't serious about making any moves or hiring me on as someone who they would work with, then but they wanted to still pick my brain and they appreciated my knowledge and everything, what I would then do is move them over to the side of it where I could leverage my resources a little better. So I would send them videos of stuff that I have recorded, and it would help them with their problem, but it would also help lots of other people as well. And then those people would in turn become clients. So that's the way I eliminated that problem, and I allow people not to waste my talent if they weren't going to be customers. All right. And it said, and then number 4 here, it says, as I use my little cheat sheet, it said, value is not always value. Okay, here's the thing. A lot of people talk about this idea where you're supposed to just give value, and it's all about the value you give a client. And I believe that. I honestly do believe that. I believe that you need to front load a lot of the value, focus on helping people to solve their problems, and also, find out what the core issues that they're facing are. I believe that as a core value of mine. But here's the thing. Value is not always valued. Meaning that if you give people something, sometimes they don't perceive the value of it, because what happens is they saw it as coming too easily. Okay? And I equate it to dating. For example, a hard, or I shouldn't say hard fought, but a long sought after kiss is sometimes more valuable than a kiss that they didn't have to work for. Okay? So the point that I'm making here is that sometimes you have to learn how to throttle back with some of the things that you're offering, because you can front load to the point where your clients perceive you as like an easy touch. They say, well, he does give you a lot of information, and I can call him whenever I want, but I don't have to order anything because, they're just giving it away. Now, there's a balance to that. There's a thing where I've actually had clients that when I've talked to them, not charging them anything and not asking them for anything, they've actually um, pleaded with me to send them an invoice for my time because value was perceived as value. So that's the point I'm trying to make to you, because you have to, and that goes back to just knowing when value is not perceived as value. You have to be aware of when someone's taking up your time and they're not perceiving you as value, and you need to make the price adjustments for that. Now, I often say this, that there is a headache factor that is priced in. Most of the time, if I perceive a client as being a headache, I will not do business with them because I'll spend all my time buying aspirin. So I do not, you know, deal with a person that initially doesn't listen to me, doesn't respect my expertise. I don't deal with that. So what happens is, and that's something that you have to realize. Now, there are some people who price in the headache factor. They say, well, because of the fact that this person is such a headache, we're going to raise it 20%. But here's the deal. If you raise the price 20%, but they're causing 80% of your headache, then you really have to raise it 80% to compensate for the headache that they're giving you. So the best thing to do is just not take them on. You have to perceive the value on your end as well. And what happens is there is a value added by a client, but there's sometimes a value that they take away. And so you need to be aware of that. All right. Now, number 5, let your clients qualify. Okay. Now, I know this sounds a little strange when we're talking about pricing, because you're thinking that pricing is just fixed or it should be like solid. But the reality of the situation is that you have to qualify to be a client. Okay? At least a client of mine. And here's what I mean by that. If you're not willing to go through the process, if you're trying to circumvent the sales process, you're not qualified to be a client. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. People who call you up and they want information about getting something done, and then you direct them, you give them some basic information, you answer the questions that they have, and then you direct them to your website to fill out the online form so that you can get specific information, their contact details, and so on and so forth. Not trying to sell them anything, but more so getting the information so that you can give them a quote, okay? If they're trying to get you to give them a price without giving you the information, it's like, how can you do that? It's like you don't have the information, so how can you give them a price? Now, here's the thing. If they're not willing to go to your website and fill out the information, they're not willing to qualify, basically. So that's the point. It's like they have to be able to follow instructions. They have to be able to do what you ask them to do. Because what happens is, if you get them on as a client and they're already not doing what you ask them to do with the simplest thing to help them, then it's going to create a problem for you. Because the whole purpose of you setting up your system is so that the sales process and the production process runs smoothly. And so when you set a course, when you set your model in motion, and the person is trying to circumvent the model, then that means that they don't qualify, because they're saying, well, here's the price, but I don't want to pay that. You're circumventing the model. Okay, you're not qualifying. All right. Or here's what I need you to do to give me the information. I don't want to give you any of that information. You're circumventing the model. You don't qualify. So that's the point I'm making. You have got to have clients that qualify. If they don't qualify, they're not really a client. Okay? And number 6, focus on your niche and get rich. A lot of people try to do a lot of things. My niche, my focus is always on business development for small to mid-sized business owners. Basically, we take what's in people's heads and we make it reality on the internet. Okay? And the way that we do that is we look for systems that automate everything. Okay, so we don't want a system that a client has to really work or learn, because the niche that I go for is not the person who knows everything about the internet, everything about software, everything about systems. They don't know that. Most of my clients know absolutely nothing about how to get the thoughts in their head onto the internet. But what we do is we provide a way that they can have it done, make it easy for them, and we walk them through the automated system so they can start earning money. Okay? And then we do it in a way that doesn't bombard them with a whole lot of technical jargon so that they are, confused, because we don't believe in confusing people and touting our brilliance. What we want to do is we want to make it's so that people can understand exactly what's going on, and we tell them the simple steps behind them and what the thing does and how it will benefit them, and basically what systems we're setting up based on their needs. Okay, so you have to focus on a niche, you have to focus on a specific group of people, and that group of people are people who are at a point where they're ready to move online, and they want a simple business system that they don't have to stress about. Okay, so that's our niche. All right, next, and the last one here is raise your profits without raising your price. How can you do that? Here's how it works. Okay, a lot of times people think that the main goal is just to raise the price and then get people to a higher price point so that we can make more money. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of times you don't need to raise the price in order to get more profit. Sometimes you have to lower the expenditures. Okay, now, for example, if you contact your different service providers or different people who are giving you, or your suppliers for different products or services, and you tell them, hey, look, I need a price break. I need a 20% or 10% discount or 15% discount, and you just tell them and just ask for it. Then you've increased your margins without affecting your current prices. Now, the thing here is that a lot of people don't think like that. They think, well, shoot, the price of cheese is going up, so I've got to raise my price 20% because they raised their price 20%. Instead of saying, look, I've been a customer with you for years. I need you to lower the price of cheese or keep it at the same price. I said, if not, I'm going to have to find somebody else who's a supplier. Now, which one do you think they're going to go with? Lowering their prices or losing you as a long-term customer? I wonder. In most cases, that's what happens. You want to see that happen for you, not just with your business. You call your cable provider. You tell them, look, I'm about to leave you. Then they have a whole department dedicated to loss prevention as it relates to customers. And so they are willing to negotiate, and they're asking you questions like, well, what do you want to pay? What would make you feel comfortable? Because they're looking at the long-term impact. The reality is it doesn't cost them any more to have the signal come to you versus your neighbor. All right, so once they get you hooked up, It's basically fixed costs. It's not variable costs. It's not the signal comes in stronger and that's why they have to charge more for you because that's absolutely ridiculous. So the point is that you can go ahead and negotiate basically everything down so that you can create money for yourself. A dollar saved is easier than a dollar earned. That's just how it is. You can just save your way to an increase by just asking for it. All right, guys, so that's the 7 tips that I have for you as far as setting up your pricing. Everyone is not going to love what you decide to do as far as your pricing. You need to stick to that. You need to focus on your your short-term goals and your long-term goals, and just decide and just go for it, and don't hesitate. Be confident about your pricing, and think about all those other things that I shared with you, because when you make that decision, you need to be comfortable with it, and don't apologize for the prices that you are offering, because if you're really focusing on offering value, somebody's going to pay. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great one. What is that noise? What is that? It sounds like somebody breathing. Oh, you're still here. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You know you like what I shared.